Grantara Shrimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Так, сегодня у нас
So today we are reading
5.18.
Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, Text 9.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shrimad Bhagavatam, песня 5 глава.
Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, Text 9. The prayers offered to the Lord by the residents of Jambudvipa. Garbhajana Prabhu, will you please read the Sanskrit?
Jayantu bhutani shivam mitodiya manascha bhadram bhajata tatokshajé aveshyatam no matir apyahaituki.
Можно пословный перевод тоже?
Can you tell us word for word translation? So Svasti, auspiciousness, Astu, let there be Vishvasya of the entire universe, Kala, the envious, almost everyone, Prasidatam, let them be pacified, Hyayantu, let them consider, Bhutani, all the living entities, Shivam, auspiciousness, Mitha, mutual, Dhya, by their intelligence, Mana, the mind, Cha, and Bhadram, calmness, Bhajatat, let it experience, Adhokshaji, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the perception of mind, intelligence and senses. Aveshyatam, let it be absorbed. Na, our, Mati, intelligence, Api, indeed, Haituki, without any motive. So now let's listen to the translation of this text. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti-yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. So here we have this aspect of the prayer. There are many aspects, many prayers, or reasons, because Krishna is the reason of all the reasons. And here it says that He is the reason of the well-being of the people. He is the reason of peacefulness, the reason for the living entities taking care of each other. It's very important to understand. Yes, people and politicians, other people, they've been looking for the source of peacefulness. They're fighting for peace, as we say. You know, there's a known formula, we fight for the peace. The formulation is really weird. You fight for peace. But here it says you just have to become calm. You don't have to fight. But there must be a reason. How to become pacified if we still fight? The ideology is totally different. How do we get calm and peaceful if our senses do not let us calm down? We don't agree with so many things in our lives. In general, all the countries on our planet, they are not satisfied. And we have been constantly searching for the reason. But this prayer is also very important to understand the reason of all the reasons. Here they call us up to serve the transcendental Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. So these thoughts, they motivate us to live for Krishna. So now the purport. The following verse describes a Vaishnava. Just like a desire tree, a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone who makes shelter of his lotus feet. So that's the beginning of this purport. And it says that Vaishnavas are very powerful in fulfilling the desires. Everyone has his own desire in this world, but Vaishnavas are the most powerful ones in fulfilling these desires. No one else can fulfill our desires as a pure Vaishnava, and they do it in a complete unbelievable way, totally unapproachable for the materialists, because they try to solve problems with a material approach. But it says that you cannot wash a glass of wine with a wine. It's impossible. So you cannot solve material reasons, material problems with the material approach. And if you want to become happy using some material methods, your miseries, they just grow. So here it says, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha. We express our respect to Vaishnavas, reverence to Vaishnavas. Well, Vaishnavas do not demand this respect, but Krishna says the one who respects Vaishnavas and express the reverence to them, they achieve high purpose. Without expressing this reverence, a person cannot be taken up to a higher level. And every time we express this reverence to Vaishnavas, Krishna notices us. If we do something beneficial for the Vaishnavas, Krishna is even more satisfied than when we serve Krishna directly. So Vaishnavas know this formula, we know this secret, and we always express our gratitude to Vaishnavas. When we do that, and when someone does it for us, we feel like we are in debt before this Vaishnava, and we serve him back. So that's how we have a unique nature of these relationships. Prahlada Maharaja is a typical Vaishnava. He prays not for himself, but for all living entities, the gentle, the envious, and the mischievous. He always thought of the welfare of mischievous persons like his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlada Maharaja did not ask for anything for himself. Rather, he prayed for the Lord to excuse his demoniac father. This is the attitude of a Vaishnava who always thinks of the welfare of the entire universe. You know, all these qualities are brought by, that's a demoniac culture, because everyone takes care only of themselves. So now a lot of psychologists work, scholars, how to satisfy people within a family. And it's a painful thing, because the person cannot even work effectively because he's got some problems within his family. There's so many tribulations right now within families that people, they just want to turn away from these values. So the tendency is about that right now, but a Vaishnava, he wishes well-being to both of these types of people, but the relationships are still built differently. You see, for example, Nrsimhadev, he kills demons. At the first sight, when Prahlada Maharaj asked him to forgive his father, to let him go for all the sins that he has committed, and the Lord said that Prahlada Maharaj has been already liberated because he got killed from my hand, because the Lord is all forgiven. He died as a hero, so he has served me by fighting against me. So that's how Lord understands it. So demons satisfy me because I have no one else to fight against. That's how they get purified, and that's a real nature of God. And Vaishnava understands this nature and follows it, so that all the people start practicing bhakti-yoga, consciously or unconsciously. That's another question. Today we've been spreading books all over the world. We're giving prasaram to people. Even evil beings will be satisfied by doing that, by eating prasaram and reading books. By just hearing about Krishna, and somehow it infiltrates into the entities of these people. A lot of people give Bhagavatam classes. People talk a lot about it these days. Sometimes people do not even realize what they're listening to. So it happens totally unconsciously. Even if we take a really small step towards it, a person might change radically. A person might start thinking about the essence of his life totally spontaneously. They start thinking about some higher purpose in their lives. So that's how, for everyone, this method is given, although all the people, they use it differently. Shrimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavata Dharma are meant for persons who are completely free of envy. Parama Nirmatsaranam. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaja prays in this verse, Khala Prasidatam. May all the envious persons be pacified. The material world is full of envious persons, but if one frees himself of envy, he becomes liberal in his social dealings and can think of others' welfare. Anyone who takes up Krishna consciousness and engages himself completely in the service of the Lord cleanses his mind of all envy. Therefore, we should pray to Lord Nrsimhadeva to sit in our hearts. We should pray. Bahir Nrsimho Hridaya Nrsimha. Let Lord Nrsimhadeva sit in the core of my heart, killing all my bad propensities. Let my mind become clean, so that I may peacefully worship the Lord and bring peace to the entire world. So we're giving this prayer by Srila Prabhupada here. Nrsimhadev is capable of destroying all our sins. No one else is able to do that, because sins are the expressions of the energy of God. That's the guna of material nature, and it's a very strong rope, and no one is able to break all these ropes. Anger and envy, they are the lowest gunas. And don't you think that if you just say that this is a bad thing, lower gunas, that people will be changed? They will get rid of that. No, it's not. They're not able of doing that, even knowing that it's a bad thing. When you find out all these bad qualities in yourself, they feel really bad, because he cannot do anything about it. Even if he is shown all these negative qualities. Even if you tell him, you see, you have this envy, he only can get upset, or he can start defending himself. That's because he's connected to this guna totally hopelessly. He doesn't want to be a bad man. He tries to come up with some methods to at least look a good person on the surface. He will try hiding all these bad qualities. That's now our nature. No one likes to be uncovered. But here it says that it is possible to get rid of all these sins. You don't have to cry over them. You just have to call up to Nrsimhadev. And he destroys all these sins. Yeah, that is the Lord's energy. It does not obey to anyone. How can people create a culture without God? It's very difficult. How is it even possible? No matter what they do, everything has some disadvantages. All these pious inclinations we do, but still we go down to hell. In Kali Yuga, that's a normal thing right now. All these conflicts and quarrels. Can you find at least one person that doesn't fight with anyone else, doesn't quarrel? But here it says that Vaishnavas, they cannot go up to this level because they pray to Nrsimhadev and they pray to Lord Krishna. Because Krishna, he takes all these things away. At least he gives you this strength, this power, so that you're able to control your sins on yourself. Prabhupada says 4 principles, follow them. If it's difficult for you, chant Hare Krishna, call up to God, and you will see that you can do it. You're able of doing it. You don't have to just wait for the Lord's mercy, but fight against these things for yourself. So develop this unpleasant feeling towards these things, to these anarthas. Ask God to enter your heart, to purify it. And if our prayer is sincere without any motives and any pretension, the same second your heart will get purified. You have to think that, you have to know that the Lord is powerful. He is all-powerful. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura has given us a very fine purport in this regard. Whenever one offers a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one always requests some benediction from Him. Even pure devotees, nishkama, pray for some benediction, as instructed by Lord Śrī Chaitanya Prabhu in his Shiksashtaka. O son of Maharaja Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from the ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So that should be enough, just to be a place, just to be an atom, a particle at your lotus feet. That's enough. You should be enough, and there's nothing else that is necessary. Just to be an atom, a particle at your lotus feet. Peace in your soul and calmness in your heart. So that's a real benediction. In another prayer, Lord Chaitanya says, life after life, kindly let me have unalloyed love and devotion at your Lordship's lotus feet. When Prahlada Maharaja chants Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, he prays for a benediction from the Lord. But because he is also an exalted Vaishnava, he wants nothing for his personal sense gratification. Yeah, that's amazing. What are we supposed to ask God selflessly? What wishes are selfless then?
Не бескорыстно.
Can we have
Чистые преданные знают это.
something in a selfless way?
Что просить?
Well, Vaishnavas know about it. Vaishnavas know what to ask God.
Первое его желание выражено
The
словами
first desire expressed in his prayer
«Асту
is
Вишвасья».
Swasti Astu Vishvasya,
Благоденствие
let there be good
всей
fortune
вселенной.
throughout the entire universe.
Он просит Господа одарить своей милостью каждого, даже
Prahlada
такого
Maharaja
демона,
thus
как Хирон.
requested the Lord to be merciful to everyone, including his father,
Никакой зависти.
a most envious person, Hiranyakashipu. You see, no envy.
Чанакья Пандит говорил, что есть
According
два типа
to
злобных существ.
Chanakya Pandita,
К первому относятся змеи.
there are two kinds of envious living entities. One is a snake, and the other is the man like Hiranyakashipu, who is by nature envious of everyone, even of his father or son.
По природе.
You see, according to his nature.
Их можно умиротворить.
You can pacify them,
Как сказать?
but
Трудно.
how can I say that? It's really difficult, it's challenging.
Чувства.
You should always try to satisfy their senses, their feelings.
Это трудно, потому
Only
что
that way they could become
когда они
satisfied.
доверяют.
But it's difficult because you can never satisfy senses
Постоянно
fully.
думать, как удовлетворить чувства
You have to
этого
always be
зависимого человека.
thinking about how to satisfy the senses of an envious person.
Говорится, что если
It's impossible.
змею поить молоком вкусным,
If you
она не
give milk to a
умиротворится.
snake, if you feed it with
Почему?
milk all the
Природа
time,
такая.
it will not
Молоко
get
она пьет,
pacified. Why?
а я
Because
пью.
that's its nature.
Потому что она это молоко
The more milk she
превращает в яд.
drinks, the more poison it
Какие
has,
хорошие слова,
because she
она
turns this
слушает
milk
другого.
into poison. You tell her some good
Думает,
words,
нет, это вот
but
небезпечный
but
коллег,
it,
или
the
что-то
snake,
хочет
hears the
в
words
момент получить, хитрит, наверняка
differently,
обманывает.
in a different
Сегодня это
connotation,
очень распространено, если вы говорите
pervertedly.
хорошие вещи, люди не верят вам.
So now even if you spread some good things around the planet, people do not believe you
Хорошие вещи
because
не поверят сразу.
there's lies everywhere. They will
Или тот, кто
simply
верит, считается
not believe you.
дураком.
But the one who
Ты что,
does
веришь в эти
believe
хорошие
is
вещи?
considered to be a
Хорошие
fool.
вещи, тебя обманывают.
Someone will say, do you really believe in all these things? You're being
Даже если
deceived.
тебя забрали, нет?
Have you already
Вот просили, ну всё, куда ж ты? Зачем
given,
ты слушаешь?
given away some money? So yeah, so why do you still listen to them?
Конечно, обман. Все хотят только денег. Все враги на самом деле.
So everyone wants
Чувство
just to have
удовлетворения
some
только
money. All
трудно, представьте.
people are your
Люди
enemies,
просто
that's what they say.
начинают ненавидеть друг друга через короткое время.
Even within families, people start hating themselves within a very short period of time of living together. He is unsatisfied, she is unsatisfied, and they start hating each other. So they are enemies to each other by the nature. See, these senses, they're not reliable.
За этими чувствами там сидит эгоист, наслаждающийся демон, понимаете? И малейшее удовлетворение
There's a
своей
demon
или
of
вот
egoism
молока,
sitting
оно
behind all
будет
these
тут же.
things.
Она забудет, что
Even
вы-
if you give
они
some
забудут,
milk to a
как
snake,
вы её
it's gonna bite you
Она её
anyway.
жрёт, понимаете? Она не может терпеть этого всего.
Because the poison that it's got inside, it burns it. That's the nature of a demon.
Хирanyакашипу ненавидел своего маленького сына Прохладу.
So Hiranyakashipu was envious of his little son Prahlada. Why? Because he didn't satisfy his
Как он
senses.
хотел.
That's
И тем
what
не
he
менее,
wanted to do.
Maharaj Прохлада просил
But anyways,
Господа
Prahlada
благословить
Maharaja
дать
asked
его
a
отцу.
benediction for the benefit of his father.
Хирanyакашипу терпеть не мог.
Hiranyakashipu was very envious of
А
devotees.
Прохлада желал, чтобы
But
его
Prahlada
отец,
wished
подобный ему демону,
that his
помиловался
father and
Господа
other
и
demons like
избавился
him
своей
would give
природной
up their envious
способности
nature by the grace of
и
the Lord
перестали
and stop
преследовать преданных.
harassing the
Кава,
devotees.
просить, да там. Ну, это опыт любого
Well, that's an
преданного,
experience of
что
each and every devotee.
когда Господь не сходит,
When Lord
например, в форме святого имени, или мы читаем
descends
явление Господа,
in
читание
the form of
явления
a,
Господа Кришны,
say,
всё
a
умиротворяется в этот момент времени. Всё
holy
это-
name, everyone
это
gets
явление.
pacified. This is
И
a
вот
phenomenon.
преданный, он знает, он молится по знанию, он
And now this
понимает, что
devotee,
если Господь
he's
сейчас
got this
придёт,
knowledge,
значит,
he
всё
prays,
умиротворяется.
and if he knows that the Lord comes down now, everything will be pacified. Well, yes, he has expressed some anger, but now some peace comes. Lord Chaitanya, he hasn't even expressed any anger. So right away he has given peacefulness. So Krishna, when he came down, all the planets got arranged in the proper situation, in the proper pattern. Everyone, even evil living entities, they stopped arguing, stopped fighting. So Prahlada Maharaj, he knows it. He's got this experience because the Lord is in his heart. He says, I've got this demonic blood because I've inherited it from my father. I was born in a family of demons, so my blood is demonic. That's the thing. But since I've been thinking about you, I'm being in peace. I don't see any enemies around me. So even having this material nature, the Lord is so powerful. And Prahlada Maharaj, he knows about it. He says, let all the evil people and entities be pacified. So Hiranyakashipu, he was trying to kill his sons, even by drowning him in the ocean. And he knew that Prahlada Maharaj, he had some siddhas. You cannot burn him, snakes do not touch him, elephants, they go around him. Even if you throw him off the cliff, he will not be hurt. So he's totally happy and pacified. He chants Narayana. So it didn't concern him. So then Hiranyakashipu, he wanted to drown him, put in some rock, heavy rock on around his legs, and drown him in the ocean. So he was very powerful and he wanted to do that. So at least he wanted to bury him alive. So Prahlada Maharaj, he was waiting for his father to do that. So he was eventually thrown to the depth of the ocean and some rocks fell onto him. And when everything was done, his father did what he wanted. And Prahlada Maharaj, he was also chained. So Prahlada Maharaj, he just waved his hand and he got himself free. So Prahlada Maharaj, he knew what he was asking for. He was very powerful. So demons do not ask for these things. Only saintly people, a devotee, ask for the Lord to be manifested. So that's how devotee, they spread Hare Krishna mantra all around the world. And this is very dear to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, since he loves devotees like this, he becomes manifested in this world. That's his mercy. Now, of course, we have colossal changes even in the world of materialism. So the preaching of devotees, it influences just in an amazing way. I think it would be good if we had like a committee or a group of devotees absorbing the fruits of preaching that we have these days. So what's happening to people these days, how the culture, the philosophy, the perceiving of this world change. It would be nice to know that, to observe what's been happening. And devotees, they should talk about it so that people know what's happening in Krishna consciousness all around the world. Not only here, in some city or village, in general. That would be a nice thing to know about all these tendencies. I think we would be shocked when we learn around all these details. Probably the results are even better than we expect. The difficulty is that the kala, envious living entity, is rarely pacified. One kind of kala, the snake, can be pacified simply by mantras, or by the action of a particular herb. An envious person, however, cannot be pacified by any means. You see, he's even worse than a snake. You can at least chant mantra to a snake, but you cannot pacify an envious person. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaja prays that all envious persons may undergo a change of heart and think of the welfare of others. But see, it sounds like such a fantasy. This power is totally unthinkable to change a demon in this way. You see, Prabhupada has made hippies happy, and that's an amazing thing as well. If the Krishna consciousness movement spreads all over the world, and if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts it, the thinking of envious people will change. Everyone will think of the welfare of others. You see, if we grab the whole world, if we encompass the whole world, and Krishna has given us the internet, not just to watch movies, but to preach, that's a great method of encompassing the whole world with the help of the internet. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaja prays, in material activities, everyone is envious of others. But in Krishna consciousness, no one is envious of anyone else. Everyone thinks of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaja prays that everyone's mind may become gentle by being fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. As indicated elsewhere in Śrīmad Bhagavatam, and as advised by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 18.65, Krishna gives us the same advice. One should constantly think of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. That's what Vaishnavas have to fight for, so that people think about Krishna constantly. Krishna has a lot of forms, a lot of manifestations, so it is all achievable. If they don't accept Krishna's name, the reason of all reasons, let them think about it anyways. And if you say, don't think about Krishna if you don't like it, they will anyway hear the name of Krishna. So Vaishnavas, they fight for that, so that all the people learn about Krishna this way or another, as about a universal form of his avatar, or some prophets, or by fulfilling their duties. There are a lot of methods of preaching. Don't get disappointed when people do not accept Krishna's name right away. Find some other synonyms, some other names, qualities, and tell them about it. And eventually, when they find out about different manifestations, they will understand why Krishna, because he is all attractive. He's got all this variety. If they learn about all this variety of the Lord manifestations, they will agree with that. But if they think only about Allah, Krishna, or Jesus Christ, it will be difficult for them to live in peace. But if they hear about such a great variety of manifestations, of course they will be closer to understanding who God is. And Vaishnavas are capable of spreading this knowledge all around the planet. Then one's mind will certainly be cleansed. Materialists always think of sense gratification, but Prahlada Maharaja prays that the Lord's mercy will change their minds, and they will stop thinking of sense gratification. Because they think about sense gratification, that's why they are irritated all the time. Everything is wrong. They want to have more than they have all the time. No matter how much they get, they want to get more because they're not satisfied. Why? Because they think about sense gratification. You see, this sense, the organs of sense, even the mind, they're not able to satisfy the soul. It's like a water droplet in a desert. It's so insignificant. even when you get what you had wanted, you still don't feel this satisfaction. You get used to it and then you get irritated as well. You see, you have this house, you're wealthy, everything you have, all the conditions are fulfilled, but where is the happiness? Not here. That's an amazing thing. So we pray so they forget about all this sense gratification. If they think of Krishna always, everything will be alright. Some people argue that if everyone thought of Krishna in that way, the whole universe would be vacated because everyone would go back home, back to Godhead. You see, there's another misery here. However, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is impossible because, you see, just materialists calm down. If some of the materialists are taking part and are listening to us right now, you see, it's never going to happen. Because the living entities are innumerable. There's a big line of people wanting sense gratification. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. In just one instant, you will not even notice this change. You see what's happening? That's the nature that we're surrounded by. So everyone will get what we deserve. So now we've read the text number 9. So here Srila Prabhupada have cited Śrī Kṛṣṇa a lot. So of course, in order to understand the devotional service and to feel it, to appreciate it, is only possible by being humble. If you do not develop this quality, it's really hard to go on. And the Lord Chaitanya has given us this mercy. The one who's chanting Maha Mantra, he can become liberated from his false ego. When he's surrounded by the society of pure devotees, he can feel the presence of God. And this very moment, he gets rid of all this false ego. So this is the mercy. It is there, it's always there, by mercy of God. It's like it goes away a little bit, giving us an opportunity to be with Lord one-to-one, not with your ego, but with Lord. And that's considered to be Lord's mercy. When kirtan stops, your false ego comes back. We continue kirtan, goes away again. We stop, and it approaches us again. So then eventually we understand that we don't need to have this Lord anymore. We don't need this host anymore. He's not even a host. I am the host of my life. I am a soul. I'm not this physical body. So this is submissiveness, conscious submissiveness. So we have kirtans, we understand that there's God, we have this sadhana. So we have to do our best to avoid any offenses. That's how we can go on living without this false ego and constantly be in Krishna consciousness. So the Lord Chaitanya gives us this verse. O son of Maharaja Nanda Krishna, I'm your eternal servitor. Who can say that? Well, yes, when we are in the middle of a kirtan, we can say that Krishna, I'm yours forever. But still we have to enjoy this ecstasy. This is very good for your sense gratification, for enjoyment. Krishna's consciousness is the highest enjoyment. But it's not so. I'm your eternal servitor. So this is submissiveness. Yet somehow, I don't want to tell the reasons, and anyways, I don't understand these reasons. Yet somehow or other, I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. I'm fallen, it turns out, although I'm your eternal servitor. Please have your mercy upon me. So that's a real submissiveness. That's the one that I've been fighting against for so many lives. And now I'm asking, please have mercy on me. I'm your servitor. It's just, it turned out that I have fallen into this ocean. So please pick me up from the ocean of death. Now I understand that I was just thrown into the ocean and place me as one of the atoms, particles at your lotus feet. So this is possible to understand this prayer. So we have two prayers here by Prahlada Maharaj and Lord Chaitanya. There's a lot of things in common. So it's a totally selfless prayer. So you see, it turns out you can ask something from God without thinking of any benefit. There's something that is higher. Only the devotional service. Prabhupada says, ask for this devotional service. Doesn't matter if you have this envy, everyone should call up to God. And until we repeat Hare Krishna, our demonic mind stops. Does not entail us to the material existence. We can restrain ourselves. So until we chant Hare Krishna mantra, yes, everyone can get pacified. So we can chant, we can serve to the spiritual master, to Vaishnavas, understanding more and more these values. But the main thing is that we never stop doing it. Otherwise, this demon will come back. Because we are born this way. That's what Prahlada Maharaj said. He said, please manifest yourself to all these people so that they start chanting your holy name. And everyone will get pacified, even the evil entities. And they will start thinking about the benediction of others, the well-being of others. So in ISKCON, we try to think about the well-being of others, other people that surround us. We always think what else we can do for them, what schools to open, what society to create, how to make this philosophy clear. That's all devotees think of. So that's what an amazing text we have today. In the eve of tomorrow's holiday, and today is the day of Rukmini Devi. And also the birthday of Jayananda Prabhu. He's considered to be the first saintly person in our movement. Everyone that used to know him, everyone says that he's a saint person. There are no doubts about that. He was an amazing devotee. Actually, he had leukemia, blood cancer, and of course he was suffering from that. But you see, almost no one knew about that, because he was immersing himself in devotional service. He was doing it very intensively. And my doctor told him that he was in a critical condition. He said, "Doctor, I should know how much time I have left." He was the president of temple in Los Angeles. Is it right? Well, officially he wasn't the president, but he was the senior Vaishnava, very revered one, very respected one. He was doing all the kinds of services. But probably informally he was considered to be the president, but definitely he was the leader. Probably they didn't have these notions as presidents, but these were not that he was in charge of the temple. So he said to the doctor, "Doctor, I need to know, because I'm doing this devotional service, I serve to God, And back then etiquette, doctor's etiquette, did not allow them to tell the truth to the patients. But back then they had this strict etiquette of the World Health Protection Association. But doctor told them that probably had just 1 month. And you see, he was right. So this devotee started thinking, what else can I do for Prabhupada? So he thought to himself, I think I'll do the biggest thing I can ever do. I will make a chariot for Ratha Yatra. It was either in San Francisco, Los Angeles. San Francisco, that's right. So he founded a temple in San Francisco. He was the president, probably unofficial, but he was in charge. He used to wake up the earliest. And he would go to bathrooms to clean them. He was taking care of all these things. So he started making this chariot. And my Guru Maharaj, he told me about it because he was helping him to make this chariot. So this devotee, he was just unbelievable. He had such an unbelievable spiritual power. He respected all the living beings. He could even engage all the people just passing by. They would just help him make this chariot. He would just say, excuse me, are you in a hurry right now? Could you please pass me that thing? So I'm just here lying under the chariot. Could you please do that? Oh, listen, you're just an amazing person. I'm so happy to have met you. What are you doing? That person would say. And this devotee would say, the Lord will ride on this chariot. And that person would just lie down next to this devotee and they would do this, they would make this chariot together. And my Maharaj, he would also help him very much. So this devotee, he was so inspirational. And he knew that there was just like 1 month left for him to leave. So no one even suspected anything of his disease. So Prabhupada told about him. He was saying about him in Mayapur and he was crying. He was saying all these things about his disciple. There was organizing Ratha Yatra. There were about 100,000 people at Ratha Yatra. That's what Jananda Prabhu organized. TV channels, everyone was there. But Jayananda, he didn't take place. He didn't take part in Ratha Yatra. He had already left his body before that. 2 or 1 day before that. And when he was found, when his body was found, so there was a tape with the Srila Prabhupada's voice next to him. Since then, we have his image in every chariot at Ratha Yatra. So every time we try to push the chariot, we see Jayananda Prabhu, Jayananda Prabhu's image, his photo. So we always tell this story at his birthday. So today was his death, the day of leaving his physical body. So he was taking care of all the living beings, but he wouldn't take care of himself. So he didn't even look very nice because he didn't want to buy any new clothes. So then devotees told him that you are present in ISKCON, you are a spiritual leader, so please dress yourself accordingly. But then he said, how can I do that? I cannot spend Krishna's money, temple's money on my clothing. But then they said, well, we don't know what to do. Well, you have to look accordingly. You're the image of ISKCON. And he thought to himself, so he didn't take any money from temple, so he went to a store, some big store. It was like more like a pavilion, like an outdoor pavilion. So there's rows of clothing. There was plenty of clothing. So he went there. So he hid somewhere there, he got himself changed into new clothes and he went outside. So he took his shirt, some pants, so, well, he stole it. And he got identified. So there was like a security or something. So he got caught. He was brought to a director of this store. But the director said right away, what happened here? They said, you see, he's wearing our clothes without even having paid for that. And he hand his old clothes back there. So this director, he started calling police. Jayananda, he was just sitting there in a humble way. So just imagine the president of a temple. What about his ISKCON's reputation? Just imagine what he was going through. So he was chanting his mantra peacefully. And then this director, he was looking at him and said, who are you? He said, I'm a president of a temple. What, are you serious? How can you be a president of a temple while you're stealing? He said, you see, I have no money. My clothing is very shabby and I'm the president and I look really bad. How can I take Krishna's money and spend it on myself? So you see, I've decided to do this thing to dress myself up accordingly. So what is this temple? The director asked. What is the philosophy you have? You don't take anything for yourselves? Jayananda said, well, yeah. And he started preaching, telling about Srila Prabhupada and Bhagavad Gita. This director started listening so carefully. He started asking a lot of questions and they were laughing. They've become friends. The police came. The director said, oh, I'm sorry, that was a false call, I'm sorry. He just seemed to me, I'm sorry. Everything's okay. Everyone is a good person here. There are no thieves here. The police said, okay, that's fine. The director said to Jayananda, so go back to my store and choose and take any clothing that you need. That's what kind of a person he was. So that's how he would impress people by his purity and his intentions. So I can read one abstract. Forgive me your blessings about Jayananda Prabhu. But before, I just wanted to, just like Prabhupada begins, usually his purpose, with the prayer to Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas is like a tree of desires, is ready to fulfill desires of every living being. How can a Vaishnava like a desire tree? And as you said, we have so many desires, endless number of desires. How can a Vaishnava fulfill all these desires? How can he do that? But we also know so it is said that there's a limitless number of living entities, and among them there's one eternal. Fulfilling the desires of all living entities. And we said that Vaishnava is ready to fulfill a desire of every living being. He gives Krishna to the others. Because Krishna can fulfill our desires, because we are eternally connected to Him with the loving ropes, loving connections. So also Srila Prabhupada gives us a comment in Śrī Kṛṣṇa when Lord Chaitanya shows us an example that a true shelter is, please make me a particle at your feet, an atom at your lotus feet. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport to the Ishopanishad, which is very interesting, he says if you want to understand Krishna by reading Vedic literature, you will be deadlocked. Theoretically, it is possible, but it's connected with very many challenges. See, theoretically, it's possible, but it's really challenging. But anyways, it will be easy for you to learn about him from his devotee. Krishna's devotee can give it to you with the words, "Here he is, take him." That's the power of Krishna's devotees. Prahlada Maharaj also, you've stressed it today. So he's asking some blessings from God, but at the same time, being a very elevated Vaishnava, he's not even thriving to get anything for his sense gratification. So Prahlada Maharaj is asking from God, not for himself, just for the others, totally selflessly. And also it seemed to be a very important thing to me, a very important prayer. In the 7th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Prahlada Maharaj says, "My Lord, the Supreme Personality of God." So having these material desires in the hearts coming one after another, I was going along the same path as everyone else, approaching to a dark water well swarmed with snakes. But you've mercifully made me your disciple and taught me how to achieve this transcendental position. So my duty right now to serve him. Can I stop serving him? So Prahlada Maharaj asked to Shrinkadeva, give him some blessings, to be always in the mood of serving his spiritual master. If you serve spiritual master, you serve the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. And everyone needs it. It's a great example set by Srila Prabhupada and Jayananda Prabhu that has completely devoted his life to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. So he had left his body about 6 months before Srila Prabhupada left his physical body. Short abstract from the book written by Śrī Prabhu, if I'm not mistaken. So now I'll just read the beginning. The one that is happy to receive the remains of food offered to God will undoubtedly achieve the liberation. When Śrīmad Jayananda Prabhu, being glorified as a result of the first devotee of ISKCON, would come to the temple, Śrī Prabhupada would give him food personally. This must have been very amazing, to honor prasadam cooked, offered to Krishna and given to other devotees by Śrīla Prabhupada. This prasadam must have been very powerful. So this Jayananda Prabhu, he was working as a taxi man, as a taxi driver. Even though he had an engineering education, when he first appeared on Śrīla Prabhupada's lectures, he was already working in a decent place, and he was senior to all the other devotees around him. And then he was preaching and working as a taxi driver. That's how he was helping Śrīla Prabhupada to spread Krishna's consciousness. So Jayananda believed in 3 aspects: holy name, Śrīla Prabhupada's name, and prasadam. With the help of them, he achieved success in all his beginnings. First of all, he always gave prasadam, the mercy of God. And there's one little story. Once he said that we will go to a prison and we'll be preaching there. So we have a program there. So we need to cook a lot of halava and samosas, something else. So they've cooked all this food. He has gathered all the brahmacharyas that were supposed to help him in this preaching program. They've loaded all this prasadam into a truck and they set out. So they've driven for some time. He came out smiling. He said, now you're going to have a feast. So they had a feast by themselves. So it was actually a trick. He just wanted to give this joy to the devotees that serve for 24 hours a day. So this was Jayananda Prabhu. I think we'll do the same, Karbhajana Prabhu, sometimes. Yes, he was taking care of devotees in a true way. Devotees loved him, he loved them back. Even though he wasn't such an elevated philosopher, but his soul was so pure. And people said that someone would fall asleep when he was giving lectures. There was one time when he fell asleep giving a lecture. But devotees, they loved him so much anyways. So what kind of relationships he had with Prabhupada and with devotees, Krishna. And then once he fell asleep while listening to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and he was practically sitting next to him. So Srila Prabhupada is giving Śrīmad Bhagavatam lecture, Jayananda falls asleep, so he just nodded off. And there was another devotee. See, the Srila Prabhupada is, it's not really respectful. Srila Prabhupada could reprimand you for that. So he said, sit properly. Don't fall asleep. And this devotee, he started reaching out his hand to wake Jayananda. Prabhupada said, stop, don't wake him up. Don't touch him. Let him sleep. So Prabhupada knew that Jayananda Prabhu, he was working himself off for serving. In this case, Prabhupada said, let him sleep. So that's how much he loved Jayananda Prabhu. That's why he's a real sane person. So I think we should do the same thing, Karbhajana Prabhu. But in order to do that, we have to be Jayananda. So Rajmani is raising his hand. Can I please make an announcement? So dear devotees watching us on YouTube, please follow the link in the description. You'll be taken to our Telegram bot. Ask us questions, we'll read them aloud if we have some time left. Those who are in Zoom, press the button to unmute yourself and ask questions. And also we have the support service. Use it. Vrajamani Prabhu. Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. So I also wanted to add something, a short story about Jayananda Prabhu. I don't know which Maharaj told about it, but it's already printed, published. Tamal Krishna Goswami, every time coming to Prabhupada, saying how Jayananda Prabhu was reading Gayatri mantra not incorrectly, not correctly. It didn't even take a minute, it took him only 30 seconds. So Tamal Krishna Goswami said that I was young, I had a hard temper, and I said to Prabhupada that, how can I do that just in 30 seconds? That's impossible. In 30 seconds to read Gayatri, to chant Gayatri mantra. So it's like, he cannot remember this mantra, so he would call up to Jayananda and told him, give him Gayatri mantra. He was listening to that, and Jayananda would just go away. Then Tamal Krishna Goswami was observing him again, would come to Srila Prabhupada again. It takes him only 30 seconds. He does not remember. Probably he's just sleeping while doing that. And Prabhupada would call up Jayananda again, and they would do the same routine. And it would repeat. Chaitanya Chandra prabhu should be chant Gayatri mantra just like Jayananda's Prabhu. You see, people are different. Yeah, it's difficult to understand sometimes. So one devotee, a very long time ago, in the Far East, so there was a devotee who would chant Hare Krishna mantra 4 hours, for about 4 hours, even for about 5 hours. So he was living in an ashram, brahmachari. So the president, they were arguing with him all the time, even the spiritual master. So when I came, I called them up and I asked them, so let's do one round together. So take out your beads, let's do it together. So we repeated. It took us 7-8 minutes. He said, well, yes, it's okay when I do it together with you, but when I'm doing it alone, I can't. And he still does that. I saw him several years ago in the south of Russia. He still chants this way. There are some devotees, what can you do? Type of mind. And there are some people that chant 32 rounds in 2 hours. How can this even be possible, I think to myself? Tongue without bones. So, you see, it's possible. Are there any questions? Probably in YouTube.
В боте пока вопросов нет, но у нас есть вопросы, адресованные Чайтанье Чандре Чарану прабhu с прошлых эфиров. Я могу начать зачитывать.
So there are some questions from my previous lectures. Can we answer those questions?
У меня 2 вопроса, прошу помочь разобраться.
So 2 questions.
К одному из наших эфиров с Чайтанье Чандре Чараном.
So it's one of the previous lections. So Mr. Hakimov tells that you can only achieve God with spiritual master. So words given in Bhagavad Gita, get rid of all the religions and take shelter at my lotus feet. So you cannot just serve to God, and you can only do it the way your guru tells you so. So if you serve God with all your actions, and still you are worse than a person having guru? No, this is already very good. When a person reads Bhagavad Gita and make an effort serving, he is already an unusual person. I don't know if we can compare with this person and anyone else. Maybe he is in some regard better than a person having guru. I don't know, it probably happens. Sometimes a person gets an initiation, but he does not make enough effort in his practice. So it's difficult to say whether it's better or worse. But it's easier. It's going to be easier for you when you have guru. He's not only going to tell you how to serve Krishna, but he will set your mind accordingly to make your practice easier. And if your efforts coincide with the direction received from your guru, you can achieve the result easier and faster. That's a good thing. Because just by making your own effort, it's going to be really challenging for you. Incredibly challenging. You cannot go beyond those limits on yourself. And if you chant these rounds without guru, it will take you a lot of time. And another question.
мусульманстве тоже есть гуру парампара.
So in radical
Знания о том, как
Islam, there's a Guru Parampara as well. They give you knowledge
Значит, они
how to
тоже
kill
служат Богу и правы, потому что у них есть гуру.
unfaithful.
И
So they also have
если
this
их
right
гуру
because they have
парампара
Guru.
заключается
And if their Guru
в этом
Parampara
знании и таком служении
is
Аллаху,
in these knowledges and such serving to God, to Allah, that means that they do everything correctly. Well, formally, you know what people say, if it says in Quran, if the Prophet said, kill the unfaithful one, well, if you perceive it formally without understanding the deep sense, of course that is so. But if Krishna says, if he tells Arjuna, fight, because these people, they deserve death, and this is your duty to fight, to protect whatever it is, to be protected. So yeah, there are some instructions, but we have to understand how to apply them using our internal energy. Not that's because we have to have a guru, because it's so easy to misunderstand it. It was said back then under those circumstances. Now we have different circumstances, and how to apply those instructions, we have to learn it from a spiritual master, a deeply devoted person, not from politicians or from some other people. That's why Guru Parampara is not just we pass over some words or loud phrases or words. We have to understand the meaning. And Guru Parampara always, every time, commands these senses. There always should be a purpose. We don't just take something away from the context. In the Bible, Bhagavatam, Jesus said, who is not with us, those are against us. But is it Parampara? There was a... So who's not with us, those are against us. So this is crazy. It sounds crazy, right? It means like the rest of the people will be destroyed. But what's the internal sense? He didn't call anyone up to kill anyone. He summoned everyone. He tried to perceive everyone to love each other. So in Quran, does it only say kill the unfaithful? I'm sorry, but there's so much knowledge in Quran. People that are beyond the parampara. Do not confuse these things.
Ананда Вриндавани, может быть, к этому месту, пожалуйста.
Ananda Vrindavani?
Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu.
Accept my obeisances. Thank you for such a great discussion. And the words about Jayananda Prabhu have impressed me very much. And about Islam, I just wanted to add that this thesis about killing the unfaithful, just like all the rest confirmations from Quran, they are actually treatise at different levels. And there's a deeper meaning that is given according to the parampara, and there are some slight and more simple meanings, interpretations. So if we use this phrase to kill unfaithful on the level of simple people, they just interpret it politically. You have to fight against those who do not belong to your religion. So it was interpreted at the times where people had to protect themselves. When Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, was there, the Muslims, they were attacked by other people. So that's why the Prophet, he said that in order to defend yourself, you can take the swords into your hands and protect yourselves. So they understood that they could fight, they could protect themselves, but eventually, when the Prophet got this knowledge on three levels, for simple people, for closer people, and then for the very spiritual, elevated people. So that's why there are like different directions right now. When they say kill the unfaithful, it means like kill your internal enemies. It means fight against your own sins, your own weaknesses. So the first thing that you have to do in order to serve Allah, you have to defeat all the weaknesses and sins in yourself first of all. So it's about the internal purification. So all you say right now is you have to act accordingly to parampara. Yes, and in Islam, those who were following this parampara, they were following it correctly. And there's a proverb: a person going along the spiritual path without a spiritual master, he's like a follower without a leader. And the path that he can cover in just 2 days, it takes him 400 days. So this picture is very clear. So thank you so much. In connection with that, Ananda Vrindavani, jihad, the word jihad, holy war, what is it? Is it also about the internal enemies? Yeah, there are internal and external jihads. So jihad should be internal. It's an internal fight, an internal battle, just like in Christianity. Some people, they said that there were some, remember the fights in order to impose Christianity, the battles. So in spiritual people, they interpret this fight only on an internal level, not externally. So there's an internal jihad inside of all of us. If people just understand it externally without a spiritual master, it always ends up to be a bad thing. Even think about crusades. There was an external thing, not an internal one. So Damodara Priya is raising your hand. His hand, I'm sorry. So I just wanted to add what Vrajamani Prabhu said. But Tamal Krishna Goswami Prabhupada commanded something. He used to talk to Jayananda Prabhu, and the next day the same thing would repeat, and he repeated Gayatri in just 30 seconds again, and then the same thing all over again. Prabhupada said that Jayananda was doing everything with such a great love that Krishna accepts everything from him. So just a little bit about Jayananda Prabhu as well. Soon after he passed away, some devotees, they needed some money, and there was like a bazaar, like an outdoor market. So the director was mafiosi actually. So he was very strict to everyone else. But Jayananda Prabhu, he melted his heart actually, and he had really warm relationships. And this mafiosi, he called him Johnny Ananda. And that day when Jayananda Prabhu left his body, that mafiosi was very angry. And then when two devotees emerged, he said that, I don't want to see anyone. And they said, I want to just see Johnny Ananda. And they said that Jayananda has just died. And that mafiosi heard that. He said that he was the only person that ever loved me in this world. So when this Radha Yatra took place in San Francisco, it was a colossal holiday in the city. Everyone would just ask, who has organized this holiday? And it turned out, disciples of Prabhupada said that everyone was talking about Jayananda. The reporters, all his pictures, they flew over the whole America. He got known by whole America. Even though he had died before that, but his glory, it would just spread around all America. So this agitation was really great. So these were the consequences of his passing away.
Вас не слышно.
Шри Кришна, спасибо большое за такое чудесное обсуждение. Раз очень хотелось...
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for such a
Алло?
great discussion.
Да-да-да, говорите. Слышно вас.
Yes, we can hear you.
Говорите.
Слышно, да? Спасибо большое за замечательное выступление. Как раз очень хотелось услышать.
So thank you so much for such a great discussion, and I was so glad to hear about Jananda Prabhu. And when you were saying about his qualities,
Сейчас слышно?
Да.
can you hear me now? Yes, it's better now. It seems like it was the internet connection. When I hear about Jananda Prabhu's qualities and the stories connected with him, I always become envy that I want to be just like him. I just wanted to be loved by everyone, and I want to treat devotees just like him, to be so sincere, because I think this is the true happiness when you have these qualities. So how do I use this wanting, use this desire to be just like him, and to learn to have his qualities, but not just the external manifestations? Well, that's a very good question. Even technologies, that is, so we hear about such qualities from devotees, and of course these qualities, they enter us, and we feel these changes in ourselves during the Shravanam hearing. We can feel some bliss by listening to these qualities, by discussing them, by glorifying Vaishnavas. We can also feel the transformation in our heart. The same method of Shravanam and Kirtanam. And of course, we need some effort. Undoubtedly, we would all want to become such devotees. We have to work on ourselves. Take out the weeds out of our heart. So it turns out envy that helps elevate our consciousness, to purify our heart, is the right use. Because when we serve, just like Damodara Priya Maharaja said, I am envious of Jananda Prabhu, but there's no anger in there. So he just wants to become like him. So it means that we serve Jananda Prabhu. He has given us a great example of how to serve God. If we follow his steps, that means that we follow his example and instructions. And that way we can develop these qualities. But we are in envy, there's some anger. When we envy some person having some anger, it means that we want to let him down. We want to bring him down. So it's probably, we shouldn't call it an envy. When we all want to be just like God and to serve God, to serve God. Can I please add something else to that?
Вас не слышно, Матаджи.
Можно, да? Просто, господин Махари Прабху. Хотела еще дополнительный вопрос к этому. Мне пришло...
An additional question
смысл, если мы чувствуем в себе вот это, просто с кем-то собираться, ну, такие встречи периодически делать.
Я слышал, что что-то пришло в голову, а вот что пришло в голову.
I've just heard that something has escaped your mind, but what it was exactly, didn't make it out.
Можем ли мы вести практику, иногда встречаться с преданными?
Can we practice meeting with devotees and glorify those devotees that are not around us right now? Inside our yatra, for example, glorifying people that are not joining us at the moment. Of course, that's a good thing. It can become even spontaneously just because we've recalled this devotee. And we also have to do it at the day of passing away of these devotees. So we should have this calendar when devotees passed away, the ones that we want to remember about. Devotees in our yatra. Yeah, that's also, it's a tradition of a local yatra. In every yatra, some devotees pass away. And the devotees that we want to remember about. Yeah, we should mark these dates in our calendars. We have to have our local calendar dedicated to our yatra. People that have lived in yatra, served the yatra. It's a good thing to have such a calendar, especially to remember the days when they left their physical bodies.
Nimai Hari Prabhu.
Nimai Hari Prabhu. So I've just recalled one more thing. So there was a discussion of 26 qualities of devotees and how to develop them on purpose, or should we just wait for them to be developed somehow? And then I was watching with the Srila Gopalakrishna Swami Maharaja a lesson during the pandemic. Some devotees would just meet in the Middle Asia, and there was a question about 26 qualities of a devotee. So Maharaj said that it's a good thing that you want to develop these 26 qualities. Chant holy names attentively, and these qualities will be developed automatically. It's called Svarupa Lakshana. The main reason. So these qualities are not the source, they are as a consequence of a devotional service. So Gopal Krishna Goswami, that's why he said that. Chant holy names attentively, and of course, these qualities, they will develop themselves. So our Svarupa is the servitor of Krishna. That's how these qualities grow. They are a sign that this is a Vaishnava.
Харе Кришна, можно тут, может быть, как некое, может, дополнение или как вопрос прозвучит?
There's one thing that I wanted to add. Probably it will sound as a question.
Да, автоматически происходит, когда мы повторяем Харе Кришна.
Well, these qualities, they may develop automatically, but at the same time, how do we chant His holy names? So we have to do it in a very humble way. We have to have this submissiveness in order to chant holy names all the time, continuously. You already have to have some humbleness, submissiveness, in order to even start chanting. Yes, you have to associate with devotees. We accept a lot of things by just associating with devotees. We just communicate with them, but since devotees have all these qualities, it's a natural thing that we are given this advance. It's like we're taking these things in advance. So that's how we can start the process of chanting holy names.
Ананда Вриндавани.
Ananda Vrindavani.
Я сейчас на минутку отлучусь и подойду.
I'll be right back. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So I also took part in this discussion in the chat, and then I was thinking about it. How do we have this conflict? Externally, it doesn't seem to be even existent. But then I thought to myself, it's like two extremes that we have. And we interpret these qualities development and this ratio between the qualities and the servant. So one extreme is that we think that we first should develop the qualities and then we should practice bhakti-yoga. And devotees said that first we have to become very moral and then become true Vaishnavas. So this extreme, it appears that when we see someone preaching Vaishnava's qualities but he does not follow these qualities himself, so that's kind of confusing. Probably they mean that probably the point is that you have to change something in yourself before preaching. And the another thing, that you don't have to change anything, you just chant and everything will happen automatically. And as far as I understand, when acharyas say about the devotional service being the source of all the qualities, and it's pious by itself, they say why it is self-sufficient is that because the devotional service includes sadachar, the etiquette. We shouldn't take any extra moral principles from some other religious systems. Our Vaishnava's system, it includes all these things. The only thing that sadachar takes its power so that we can follow all these principles and change our behavior. It takes its power from chanting. Because when we don't chant, these gunas, they take over. So we always have this balance, but the priority is always given to the 9 methods of serving. But it's not like we refuse taking any effort. I don't know if I was clear right now. I just have this argument inside of me. It seems like we're talking about the same things, but differently. Yes, everything is clear. Are there any more questions? Yeah, there are some questions in bot. How can a living being make a conscious choice if it's substantiated by karma and can act only using this physical body? Who makes this choice this way? And another question is, a person is controlled by gunas. So that means that a person makes a choice according to these gunas. How can we explain that? So I have to understand the question. Can you repeat the second part of the question again? A person is controlled by the gunas of material nature. It turns out that this person makes a choice according to these gunas that are influencing him. How can we explain this? Probably that's a question about the freedom of choice. So how can a person make or have a freedom of choice if he is substantiated by gunas of the material nature? Person does not choose guna. He might not even know anything about gunas. It's just he's got these material desires, but gunas, they fulfill his desires. But guna itself is such a machine that if you start it, it just goes on and on. It keeps you, holds you. So it's dangerous to face this material nature. So then you decide to have this freedom of choice, but it's partially because guna binds you. For instance, if you want some money, some wealth, so Raja guna will come to you. That will give you this necessary enthusiasm and power and understanding of how to do some energy. But it will be really challenging to escape from this guna, to get out of it. So be really careful not to sell your soul to a devil. So it's difficult to communicate with material nature. Just the person wants something for himself, and then guna serves you and makes this person a bad person. He does not even notice this change. It's a very dangerous contact with the material nature. See what thin it is? So it's like we have the freedom of choice to desire. But in order to choose the right thing, we have to have some knowledge. Nitai Mangala is raising his hand. Hare Krishna, dear Gurudev, please accept my obeisances. So my friend from Vladivostok, who asked me to ask you, so he said that when devotees get to know that Lord Krishna has a lot of avatars and different forms, they get confused. And they have some doubts that he can be this form, that form. But he said, I have no doubts because this is Lord. He can do whatever he wants. What's the problem? But he says that in a friendly way that, can you ask your spiritual master, maybe I'm just silly and I'm just indifferent? Can you please help me? I don't have any problems with understanding these things. Well, sure, I don't have any problems with that. So maybe I'm also silly. How can I answer this question? So I just remember this story about meeting Narada Muni. So the shoemaker, when he learned that Narada Muni was going to Vaikuntha, they wanted to know when they will be back to Vaikuntha. And then Narada Muni asked Narayana said the shoemaker will come back there in this life. But it will take a lot of lives to Brahmins before they come back to Krishna. Narada Muni got really surprised. How is that even possible? So Brahman, they do these yagas every day and all these things. But shoemaker, he only works with the leather. He's dirty all the time. Then Narayana said, when they ask you if you have ever been to Vaikuntha and what you did, and when they ask you what Narayana was doing, tell them that I was just taking an elephant through a needle's ear. So then when Narada Muni came back, he was sitting, and Brahman, he has these doubts. How can that even be possible? You probably haven't been there, or you are deceiving me. That Brahman said to Narada. And then when shoemaker, he heard that, he started dancing. Narada Muni said, do you really believe in that? And the shoemaker said, why not? So he was sitting under the tree, the banyan tree. So he took just one seed. And if God has put a huge tree into this seed, why can he not take an elephant through a needle's ear, to needle's hole?
глубокой верой.
So even if you have this deep faith, it is already knowledge.
Мангала Прабху тоже
Anytime Mangala Prabhu,
преданный.
that's about your question now. Thank you so much. And I wanted to ask you about this elephant. So I wanted to ask if
Хвост сначала удобнее.
if this elephant was taken through this needle's ear with its trunk or with its tail first. So probably with its tail, but I'm not sure.
Хвостом с тонким удобнее. Если хвост пройдет, то остальное
So
надежно, понимаете? А вот
if the tail goes first, then it will be easier. But if it's a camel, it will be more difficult because his humps will get in the way. Thank you so much. I'll pass this answer to my friend that he's okay.
Ну что, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, вы, наверное, уже должны завтракать. Мне
ну, должен, но видите,
Well, so probably,
сегодня Двадаши. и
Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, you probably have to have your breakfast already. So Ekadashi is today, so I think we
хорошо, всем большое
finish on that.
Большое спасибо вам.
So everyone, thank you so much.
Shrimad Bhagavatam ки джай, Шрила Прабхупада ки джай, Его милость Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu ки джай, Нитай Гор Премананде, Хари Хари Бо. Дорогие преданные,
So dear
завтра у нас
devotees,
праздник, Нрисимха Чатурдаши,
tomorrow we have a holiday,
и праздничную лекцию прочитает
Nrisimha Chaturdashi.
Отечество Бхакти-Вигна Винаша Нарашинга Махарадж.
Bhakti-yoga Vinasha Narasimha Maharaj, the disciple of Jayapataki, will
Всем доброго
give a lecture tomorrow.